Up next is a true mentor of mine in the cannabis industry, the first person who ever had me at a serious cannabis event in New York City, Scott Greiper. Scott Greiper is the president of Viridian Capital Advisors. I think it's one of the first investment banks in cannabis. The first, he says. I believe him. I believe anything he says. And by the way, check out their data. The Viridian Deal Tracker is probably the most valuable data resource that a cannabis investor can check out on a daily basis. And I don't know, tell them how you subscribe, by the way. Shameless plug, come on.
Hello, everybody. As we're winding to an end here, thanks everybody for staying over here. My name is Scott Greiper. I'm the president and founder of Viridian Capital. Javi kind of got it right. He didn't want to say we're the first investment bank in the industry because FINRA and the SEC are in the corner over there, but I'll say that we were the first investment bank M&A firm in the cannabis industry. We launched in June of 2014, so we're in our 8th year. I don't know how you measure that in cannabis years, but it's a lot more than 8. And it's been an incredible and interesting wild ride. We're a data partner to Benzinga. So if you go onto the Benzinga website, you'll see all the Viridian research on the right side. And you can all subscribe for free to the Viridian Cannabis Deal Tracker. Since January of 15, we have tracked and reported on every deal in the industry in the world. Capital raise, debt, equity, public-private, and M&A buyer and seller. So it's just a great resource to understand the flow of capital and M&A in the industry. Enough about me. I'm here to interview my new friend, Jakob Pripstein.
Yes.
Jakob and I have known each other for a few days, but there's a lot of commonality between us.
Yes, true.
Jakob is the executive chairman of the board. It's a goddamn powerful title, Jakob.
My title, that's all.
To YourWay Cannabis, which used to be Hollister and went through a name change and kind of a branding change.
Mm-hmm.
You're all about building a house of brands.
Correct.
You were the president of Diageo Canada.
Correct.
Were the president of Tilray.
No.
No?
Afria.
Afria. Well, that was close.
Very close, actually.
On my board, we have the former president of Diageo, the former head of M&A for Mars Wrigley, the former chief marketing officer of Anheuser-Busch. We believed in brands when we started the company in 2014. This is going to be a brand industry, and it's the quality of the interaction between the customer and the brand. The occasion is in which you consume the brands. Nobody walks into a liquor store to buy their Grey Goose and asks where they grow their potatoes, because nobody cares. They care about the brands and their loyalty to the brands and their emotional attachment to the brand. So with that being said, what is your strategy? Because you're not the only company to come with a philosophy of house of brands.
It's not a new concept.
So how are you different? How are you implementing that? What is your brand strategy?
Thank you for that. It's a great question. Let's start what makes the house of brands. House of brands is really 3 verticals, for lack of a better word. There's our own brands, and if you look at YourWay Cannabis, Venom is one of them. Great acquisition yesterday with Ionic brands. So these are really our own brands. Where we really develop from ideation, identify the consumer needs, develop the branding, develop the messaging, and really execution and sales. The second vertical is our partner brands. If you saw the announcement of Opal and Aero, these brands, we partner with them, we either take them into other territories, help them expand, do the execution with them. And our third vertical is, the third pillar is control brands. That's where we work with retailers. So the concept, and the retailers really, you take the retailer agenda and help them with the strategy and the brand development and ideation through execution in their stores. So the concept is not new. What is different for YourWay is really how we start. We do believe it's a CPG industry, as you indicated. We do believe that cannabis is an ingredient. It's about the branding. It's about now who's working behind the scene on these brands to develop them. We believe if you look at the makeup of the people we have and the strategy we have, we've installed a number of people from Jake, who is the CEO, from Chris, who's the chief brand officer, Sandra, the CFO. We have a strong individuals who've been in the CPG, and I'll touch it in a second, but have the background and the skills and the capabilities to really work on this kind of an agenda. No, people use the CPG world or the concept quite easily over here, which is true, it is. And also people, it's very simple. Go to any company, look at the website, or as one of the files is people in the leadership, click on that, scroll down, see it's there. And I would challenge every company to see the makeup of the people we have who actually will drive that agenda. Okay, these are about the people you have, their skill capabilities, because you need the opportunity. I was fortunate, as you indicated, to be part of Diageo. I inherited the brands like the Crown Royal and the Smirnoff. I didn't create them. It's a very one skill in CPG to do it. It's a bit of a different CPG skills to start from the bottom up. And you'll see the people we have in our team, they had experience of creating brands from nothing into something in the CPG world, which will make all the difference. So while the concept is not new, 100%, few companies, if not a lot, claim to be brand companies. I would argue skill is a bit of a different actually to make it happen.
Diageo was interesting to me from the time we started Viridian because they are the consolidator in the beverage alcohol market,
Correct.
the spirit alcohol market.
Correct.
And tell me if I'm wrong, but typically they're not starting brands.
Mm-hmm.
They're buying brands at some early stage,
Mm-hmm.
plugging it into their distribution
Correct.
system, and all of a sudden you take a small brand, it becomes a $3 billion brand. It is all about distribution and
Mhm.
marketing and creating the occasion.
Agreed.
So we are in a social business. Cannabis is all about socializing.
Mhm.
How does that evolve into replicating, which I think is what you're trying to do, the beverage alcohol brand development? How do you do that in the cannabis world?
So, Diageo actually, if you take any of the big spirit, any of the biggest CPG, they have two concepts. There's either go in and buy a brand, or there are some developing. In some cases, if not all, it's what I'll call brand extension. So take a brand and create extension, not we create it from bottom up. There's only a few instances where they create from nothing.
Yeah.
So that's number one. It's a consumer strengthening approach. As long as your consumer is a holy grail for you, you talk about the consumer as the number one, the user. And what you all will do through our brands, allow the consumer to interact with the plant in the way they want it, when they want it, how they want it, price points, branding. And that's what I do. So you take a consumer-centric approach, which is exactly what Diageo is. It's about the occasion, how you consume it, where you consume it, no different than alcohol. And as long as you apply that, and that's exactly what YourWay is doing, you'll evolve to the same concept of creating brands which translate into sales with the consumer. A big part of it, there's no question, is the route to market. How do you take these brands and get it to the consumer? And as such, a policy or a pillar like a control branch working with a retailer is so valuable.
So you announced yesterday, we should have had this interview yesterday, the acquisition of Ionic Brands.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting from two perspectives. It was an all-stock deal,
Mhm.
I believe.
Yeah.
Well, that's unusual in this industry, except not in the last 3 or 4 months.
Mhm.
We found in our tracker that more and more acquirers are paying all stock, which tells me that the sellers are willing to take back the stock
Mhm.
and not look for cash.
Mhm.
Because as a guy who buys and sells companies, if you're representing a seller, you're trying to get as much cash as you can. So even in an environment where stock prices of public companies have gotten slammed, sellers are still willing to take back. Now, it depends whose stock you take
Right.
back, but that was unusual. It was an all-stock deal. And it was a public company buying a public company.
Correct.
That kind of violates the rules of M&A. Public usually buys private because there's the arbitrage between public valuation and private. And that's where the value is, the value gap. But once again, in the tracker, we're seeing over the last year, as a matter of fact, the top 3 M&A deals last year were publics buying publics. What's going on with that in your mind? And how did that come about in the Ionic purchase?
So it's all started with the align on the idea of household brands. Ionic was built on building brands and satisfy consumer needs in Washington, Oregon. Great brands, great penetration in the market, great people. The human capital is unbelievable over there. So that's number one. So aligning the two companies of where we want to go and how we want to do it between YourWay and Ionic was very simple for that conversation. Now, the question is, how do you take two companies, in that case it's public, and understand what the values are together, create something that actually will extrapolate itself and grow itself in the future and really return more to the new shareholders in the new company, the one they joined, versus what they have. That's why I think, again, I think it would be probably more appropriate to ask John and the guys from Ionic, but I think the idea was we can grow together with what YourWay is doing and really return more for them. And a big part of it is really a combination of people and brands and penetration, and obviously allowing to take Ionic brands into other territories. As you know, Ionic is Washington, Oregon. YourWay is California and Arizona. Great performance in Arizona through the Venom brand. So the ability to take these brands across territories, states, it's very valuable. So I think the concept is first, are you aligned on what we're building? Is the human capital between YourWay and the Ionic correlate, and they do, can work together. And the concept of what YourWay is doing, which was very simple for Ionic team to understand because they were trying to do the same.
So tell me if I'm right or wrong, but if I'm a seller and I'm taking back all stock as consideration from the buyer, I'm not going to the beach with a pile of cash. I'm not being cashed out.
No.
I'm rolling into your company. I'm staying on board.
Correct.
I'm playing the equity of the combined companies.
Correct.
Is that what's happening with
That's what happened. We both the brand and we plan to combine some teams together because there's great talent in Ionic, which we know can come to together work with us in YourWay. Part of what we do know, we need more capacity. We know we need more talent. I'm going to say what I started. It is about the people behind the scene doing the work. And we know that Ionic has tremendous individuals who can really help us grow the YourWay agenda. And that definitely is going to happen.
Do you see Diageo coming into this industry? Because they haven't.
Yeah.
We know the company well. They're looking, they're doing diligence, but they've not made any kind of a significant move.
Yeah.
They're the giant gorilla in the alcohol space.
Yeah, no.
So Constellation came into Cannabis. That was a beer company. They went up to Canada to be clean and just curious. Where do you see Diageo going in this space?
It's interesting how many times I've been asked the question. I guess I know something about Diageo. That's really what the reason. But so in the two stages over here, people raise the idea of Diageo coming in and buying companies. If you look at Diageo history, and listen, I'm not at Diageo for a long, long time, but if you look at Diageo history, they are quite particular what they buy, how they buy it. You know, they buy brands. They don't buy necessarily big companies unless that big company is big brands. Do I believe they'll come in? Listen, I do believe it's another, it's something that probably, not Diageo, for that matter, whether you're a big spirit or big pharma or big tobacco. This industry need to appreciate and acknowledge it's could be part of your business. It is a satisfying consumer needs in a CPG world, so it really doesn't matter you are, you want to satisfy the needs. Do I believe those companies are going to come in? I do. Do I believe they're going to particular what they buy? Absolutely. I believe the focus will be on brands. Yeah. And that's what they're going to look for. That's what they've done in their industry, and now they go around it in other industries. I think they're going to focus less necessarily on the, as you said, where you grow it or how you grow it, but what you actually deliver to the consumer and the quality. So I think that's where they go. So do I expect them to go in any of these big companies? I do. When it's interesting questions, there is a federal conversation in the US. When it's going to be, I think it's an obstacle we have to appreciate in what they do. But I don't think it's an if, it's a when.
So we've got 2 minutes and 33 seconds before we get yanked off the stage. So M&A will continue to be a core part of your growth strategy. Mm-hmm. Because of the decline in public market valuations, it's affected a decline in private market valuations. It's actually a good time to be a buyer. So what does that mean for you going forward? You listed on the OTCQB market. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that'll create some liquidity for your stock. Mm-hmm. You can be a more powerful buyer with stock. Mm-hmm. So M&A continues to be an important part of your strategy? Yeah,
absolutely. If you go back to the three pillars we have, which is our own brands, our partner brands, and the control brands, that will continue. That is YourWay agenda when it comes to the house of brands we're building. Part of it is, in our own brand is M&A. As long as we see a brand or a company that align to that concept, I think there's a conversation to be had. Partnership conversation to be had, and control brands will come at the due course, and I know it's going to be happening because again, it will be valuable to the retailer. So M&A will continue. We became a legit MSO yesterday with four states, moving from one brand to 3 to now 10 in a matter of 2-3 months. The agenda is live and kicking, and we'll continue to expand. The intent is to bring brands and states into the fold of YourWay. So I would expect it will continue.
And the brand acquisitions, are you looking at that to establish bigger presence in existing states or to move into additional states?
Everything is an opportunity for us. I mean, part of it is when you bring more brands, cost saving, return to shareholders. We focus on running a good business. Unlike other companies who build a house of cards, we actually building a house of card brand. That's what we're building. The idea is to build a company that's going to operate and run properly, and possibly one day will be acquired. But we don't do let's bring stuff in and see how it goes. We're going to bring them in, as we've done with Ionic. We're going to have a great integration for this brand, which is a lot of work, we know it, but there's a great team behind the integration. We're going to do it, and we'll build a great company, which will deliver shareholder return. So would that mean more brands and more states? Probably. I wouldn't deny that. When, how, I think in due course will come.
You finding competition for targets that you're looking at from other buyers?
Yeah, we do. We see it, which is fine. Again, part of it, we have great agenda. We're very lucky until now. There's great conversation we're having now. There's a lot of interest. But so far, I can tell you, we haven't faced any, I won't call significant, there's competition all the time, but we're not worried about it because we know what we offer. We believe in what we offer. And again, the other company, when they join us, they have to believe in the same concept. And if you do, great opportunity, great conversation. If you don't, we just bring the wrong company to work with. Mm-hmm. Because again, the people behind these brands and the company, from Jake and Chris and Sandra and the team that's helping us, is the people that believe in the YourWay agenda, in building a house of brands.
I'm going to talk until Javi rips us off the stage here.
Sure, I'm good with that.
Is there a product format that you're looking at? In other words, is it beverages? Is it flour? Is it infused products?
No, it's a great question because again, let's go back. It's a consumer-centric approach, which means what the consumer is going to tell us. Today, there's no limit. If the consumer is looking for, if it's a pre-roll or a drink or a gummy, we'll provide them these concepts. So there's no limit to what a product we are going to produce. There is a conversation and a lot of data-based conversation of which brand goes where in what format. Because again, it's about finding the gap in the consumer, satisfy that gap in the right way, in the right format, in the right price, location, all that. So there is no limit to what product or what format. There is a conversation all the time as we bring brand, again, which is a house of brand consumer-centric approach, what goes where, which is a very data-centric or very data-oriented conversation, but we do have that, absolutely.
Do you have the distribution system set up such that you can acquire a brand like Diageo, put it through your system, and all of a sudden it's 3x in revenues?
Yeah, we're working on that as we speak now. There's obviously a conversation we have now with the acquisition of Ionic in Washington, Oregon. We obviously are, those in Arizona and Phenom, the distribution is great. And one of the great things about Ionic is the penetration they have in the Washington and Oregon state. So we have conversation how to expand it, but we have the makeup to drive the distribution. Absolutely.
Okay. So they've sent Elliot Lane to be the Mad Viper here to get us off stage. So Jakob Ripshtein from YourWay Cannabis, thank you.
Appreciate it.